Hello everyone! In this video I'm going to show you how to sew an easy medieval hood using our new Tailor's Gone Wild medieval hood sewing pattern. This hood is very easy to make. It's literally just 2 pattern pieces, but it looks great when it's finished. I'll be using a navy linen to demonstrate, but of course you can use whatever you like. Wool can definitely be a great option for this too. Anyway, the pattern is available at www.tailorsgonewild.com, both as a physical copy and a digital download. It's also included in our Medieval Monks / Grim Reaper sewing pattern, also available there on the site. So let's get started. If you have a serger, serge the center front and center back edges of the right and left mantle, piece A. Sew the right and left mantle pieces together along the center front and center back, right sides together with 5/8 inch seam allowance. Press the seam allowances open. However, if you don't have a serger, that's completely fine. I suggest sewing the seams and pressing the seam allowances open just like you normally would. Then fold the seam allowances back on themselves toward the seam line, with the raw edge sandwiched between the layers. From the underside, edge stitch the allowances into place close to the folded edges. Press the seam allowances again. You do wind up with a little bit more bulk in the seam and a couple rows of top stitching on the outside, but I think it still looks fine. You can barely see the stitching on more textured fabrics like linen anyway. To hem the mantle, press the lower curved edge under 1/4 inch. Then press it under 1/4 inch again. You can also pin the hem allowance into place if you like. Edge stitch the hem allowance into place from the underside. Press the finished hem. That's it for the mantle. Now we'll move on to the hood. Sew the hood, piece B, closed along the center back, right sides together with 5/8" seam allowance. Serge the seam allowances together. If you don't have a serger, I'd recommend enclosing these allowances with some bias tape or seam binding. Press the seam allowances to one side. Either side is fine. When you get to the corner, just do your best and try not to press any creases into the hood itself. Trim away the allowances diagonally at the corner. Turn the hood right sides out. To hem the hood front, press the front edge under 1/4 inch, then 1/4 inch again and edge stitch the hem allowance into place from the underside. Of course, if you're experienced with hemming, you can skip the pressing and pinning and fold the allowances as you go. Press the finished hem. The hood is now ready to be attached to the mantle. With the mantle inside out, insert the hood into the mantle neckline. Pin the hood into place with the front edges of the hood flush at the mantle center front and matching center back seams. Baste across the center front and center back. Check to make sure everything lines up properly at these areas. Once you're satisfied with the alignments, sew the hood to the mantle with 5/8" seam allowance all the way around, reinforcing your stitching several times at the center front. I like to do another reinforced stitch 1/8 of an inch inside the first at the center front to help keep the front edges of the hood from ever pulling or tearing open. You can also do a bar tack there instead. Serge the hood/mantle seam allowances together along the neckline and press them downward. Again, if you don't have a serger, I suggest binding these seam allowances. From the outside, edge stitch or top stitch the hood/mantle seam allowances into place along the neckline. Press the finished neckline area. I like to press this from the outside over a tailor's hem, so be sure to use a press cloth or a protective shoe on your iron. That's it. You're all finished. I hope you enjoyed this sewing tutorial. Again, the sewing pattern for this is available on our website, www.taylorsgonewild.com, and it's also included in our Medieval Monk/Grim Reaper sewing pattern. If you're interested in learning more about sewing, check out our sewing courses there too. They're specifically for people who want to make costumes, and a great way to level up your sewing game. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you next time.